button. I think McCall's starts
I'm just
automatically.
feeling inside my bones.
Okay, I'm now
It goes
live
electric, baby, when I turn it.
on both channels.
I always forget where the button is. Shoot. Oh, the title. I always forget this too.
All right, guys, we're just getting set up. So just give us a couple minutes and we'll get started.
Sounds good.
It's so funny. The sun's going down for McCall and I, and it's still bright for you guys in Washington.
The palm trees are swaying.
You can knock off those palm trees anytime.
Yeah, we have tumbleweed blowing.
Yeah.
Our neighbors are redoing their, they're doing some construction, and so all day I've just been hearing leaf blowers and nail guns.
Ugh.
The perfect intro to new construction.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you seen Donald Trump down there yet?
No, he's in the ritzy part.
Oh, well, that's where you guys were, in the ritzy part.
I'm in the cheap seats in the back,
Cheap seats.
the nosebleed.
All right, Lexi, you want to get us started?
Yeah, welcome back to the Realtor Cousins.
Yay!
Yay. Whoop, whoop. This is our third episode.
Cheers
again,
to that.
Yeah, I don't have no drinks over here. So we put this together, and there's the three of us realtors, all in a different market. Catherine.savitch is my sister, and she's in Charlotte, North Carolina. McCall Schilling is my cousin, and she is in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm Lexi, and I'm in Tri-Cities, Washington. And our guest today is somebody very special. And he has a really big real estate brain because he's been in the industry for as long as I can remember. We were joking last time about how you used to drive us around and talk about parcels of land that were forested. And you said, oh, wouldn't that make a great development? So anyways.
You were a tree hugger at the time.
I was a tree hugger.
Yeah.
So
I said that just to tease you.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and last time we were joking about how we used to go, oh man, when Dad would go on the side streets and go through neighborhoods because he just wanted to scope it out, you know, and now we do the same exact thing. So we've learned from the best.
Yeah, the acorn doesn't fall too far from the tree, huh?
Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us today, Dad. We wanted to start by asking you on a little background of how you got started and who you are a little bit.
All right. Well, I've been in the home building business at least 2 weeks. I learned about it on YouTube. Yeah. Actually, no. I've been in this business most of my adult life. Initially, I was involved in working with production home builders to help them become more production oriented, help with different systems to accelerate their rate of growth, developing product lines and refining the various house plans and developing a series of plans for each of the builders that they could then use to provide a selection for people wanting to buy one of their homes in a neighborhood that they would be developing. And I did that for a number of years. And at one point, one of the guys turned to me and said, you know what, Les, you're doing all the heavy lifting. Why don't you build houses yourself? And I thought, that's not a bad idea. So I moved to Tri-Cities, Washington, and bought a housing company from an existing one that had been in business for 25 years, Varsity Homes, and then grew the company from there. developing several different product lines, some which worked out famously and others which didn't. The one which was particularly exciting for me was the development of a series of houses that were designed after a mid-century modern motif, which was certainly big time in places like Southern California and Scottsdale. In Scottsdale, for example, whenever a mid-century modern home comes on the market, it's bid up to unprecedented levels. People can't wait to buy these guys. So I thought, geez, this would be a great thing to build in Tri-Cities. Well, as it turned out, people didn't salute. We ran the flag up the pole and nobody saluted. And we sold a few, but it wasn't the barn burner we thought it was going to be.
Well, I was going to say the people that did buy them, though, are really passionate about the homes that they bought, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's like you either love them or you hate them.
Yeah. Well, it has to do with developing a product that's kind of thematically consistent. And the various items that we built into those ultra-modern homes were design features that were themselves ultra-modern. For example, the lighting fixtures. We went to a real modern manufacturer and distributor of lighting fixtures in Southern California that where we were able to buy these, and it was very unique here for Tri-Cities. And we tried to do the same throughout the house. In the case of the craftsman style homes, we worked pretty hard to keep that a consistent look about it from start to finish. A lot of times what you find is homes that are kind of eclectic. They use a little bit of this style, a little bit of that style, and after a while you get to a house and you say, well, you know, it doesn't reflect any particular style. And so at any rate, that's one of the things that I have professed and tried to utilize during the course of time that we built the company. I've recently retired, and now looking back on it, I kind of miss it. When I drive down the street, looking at the various homes that we've built over 700 homes in the last 15 years. I guess I didn't realize that until one day a rep from Chicago Title came in. He said, geez, Les, you know, we've been numbering these things as we've been selling them. And I don't know if you realized it, we just passed 700. Oh, geez. So, ding, 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 yeah, ding, ding, really, yeah. There was no special award associated with selling 700 homes.
We give you a pat on the back.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, there you go. But in any event, my background is in production housing. And that's the area where I tend to excel. There's two different kinds of housing, basically. One is production housing, where you have a home builder who's building from a series of houses that they've refined over the course of time and that they have found particularly worthwhile in their particular area where they're building. And the other is a custom builder. And a custom builder is a guy who's going to build the house the way you want it built. We tried with production housing to provide as much flexibility for the home buyer as possible so that he had some level of flexibility. But by and large, if you really want a custom home, you need to go to a custom home builder. The financing is entirely different with custom homes. With a custom home, you go out and you get your own financing. It's a custom home loan. And where basically you have a lot more control over the disbursements of funds and so forth that you wouldn't have in the case of buying from a production builder. In my case, I like to go out, buy the land, do all the utilities and build a house from the ground up, in which case I owned the house until we sold it to you technically when the house was completed. And at that point, it became your house. Until then, it was my house.
Okay, I'm gonna dive in right there. So I'm a family and I decide that I want to build new construction. What is the first step I take?
Well, I would say the first thing you need to decide is whether you really want new construction. There are a lot of people who are kind of enamored of building from scratch, and they think that's really a wonderful thing, but they don't have the right kind of emotional background to be able to make that fly. You've got to be pretty resilient if, in fact, you want to go out and have a home built. I would say for most people, they're really better off going to an area where they like to see where there's other homes being built, and you look for different builders who happen to be building in that subdivision, and you say, gosh, let's select one of these that is most consistent with what I'm looking for. Now, for the faint of heart, you can go out and hire an architect and have a beautiful home design. Some of these architects come up with some gorgeous ideas. A lot of times an architect will both do exterior elevations and interior elevations. So you can see exactly what the interior is going to look like. With the current design capabilities that most architects have, they can show you CAD drawings that where you're sitting down and meeting with the architect, he or she can actually show you what different alternatives are going to look like three-dimensionally. And that's, gosh, that's added a whole different dimension to the business of doing custom homes. In the old days, you'd have to pretty much count on the architect, and in the end, you could either end up with something that was exactly what you wanted, or something where you'd have to say, oh my gosh, I don't know where the communication went wrong. So at any rate, there's some real advantages to doing that today. I would say one of the considerations too is what your budget is. With a custom home, you're going to be paying more. With production housing, the price keeps changing, but the largely a production housing product is pretty projectable. You can go to a subdivision, and a builder or builder's representative will say that particular style of home on that given lot is going to cost you $440,000.28. They can be pretty precise. When you're having a custom home designed, the sky's the limit. It's invariably, when people get started with a custom home, they keep saying, they keep adding things. They keep going to the architect and saying, gosh, what would it cost for us to add a couple more skylights? Gosh, as long as we're here, how much more would it be to add a pool for the backyard? Or gosh, it'd be nice to have a sauna as well. How much would a sauna add to that? And so
that's why the model homes are so good looking, huh? That's how they get you. That's how they get you. So speaking of cost, lately in the news headlines, we've seen building materials such as lumber just skyrocketing. What does that mean for builders and in turn buyers?
It's tough. I can tell you that from any perspective. It's tough for the builder because so many times a buyer comes and sorry, I don't know where that came from.
Is that your award for selling 700 homes that just came in?
That's right. Yeah. I get my just desserts. Yeah. Geez, where was I?
The cost of
the cost.
lumber.
Yeah, the cost of lumber. I just got off the phone a couple days ago with our primary supplier of lumber in this market. It's a Par Lumber Company, and he said our cost of lumber is just unconscionable, but we have no way to go here, and so a sheet of 4x8 plywood, for example, used to cost me $5.50. Now it's $28. And so you just take that and follow that through from start to finish, all your lumber product.
Well, it's kind of funny because even though the cost of building is going up here in the Charlotte market, it's almost a better plan to build from scratch than to go up against multiple offers right now, potentially cash offers, and offers coming in that are way over the asking price. Whereas if you go directly to a builder, then you have that set price, you put in your deposit, you're locked in. And so I guess it kind of just depends on the market in terms of, what's the best deal. Because here in Charlotte, like I said, it is still a really good deal to build.
Well, it'll be consistent wherever you go across the country. I mean, the same builder who's building for $150 a foot now in Charlotte was building for $130 a foot delivered 6 weeks ago, say.
Right.
So, in a relative sense, everybody's confronting the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
Another issue is that you don't have as big detraction in Charlotte is the cost of lots. Although I'm sure they're going up here in our market, where I used to be able to buy a lot for $40,000 5 years ago, and the lot size was 100 by 100. So you had a 10,000 square foot lot for $40,000. Today, that lot is 7,500 to 8,000 square feet. And it's going to cost you in excess of $100,000. So that really has changed the market as well.
Definitely.
Changed the selection.
Right. To piggyback off of that, what are the considerations when you're choosing a lot? What do you recommend that buyers look for in terms of lots?
Well, all lots aren't created equal. When you buy a lot, you want to make sure that it has all of the utilities to the site. I'm constantly surprised at how many people, even reasonably sophisticated buyers, will fall in love with a given location and they say, gosh, this is the lot for me. They go out and they put non-refundable money down on a lot only to find that, it doesn't have sanitary sewer. So they have to find a different route. There are septic systems are becoming more and more difficult to install as local jurisdictions are finding that that's just simply something they don't want to have promoted in their area. And a lot of times a city, but we encountered this in Connell, for example, where once the sewer is installed in a given area, the whole idea of anything other than sanitary sewer is out of the question altogether. They won't approve it. So I would say the biggest issue is to identify that you have everything you need to build a house on the given lot that you had an interest in. The second item is to make sure that the proper preparatory work was done. If there was fill on the lot, one of the things we've always done is in the purchase agreement, we ensure that there can't be any more than 15 to 18 inches of fill on the lot. And the reason is because if it hasn't been properly compacted, you're going to have a real problem. I was just passing a lot here in Tri-Cities on the way out to my home a week ago, and I saw where it appeared that a builder was having a problem going down to virgin soil because of the amount of soil that have been heaped up on that lot. So that's another issue. Another issue on top of that is going to be a lot of times a beautiful view lot is a tough lot to build on. And so if you've got a lot of slope one way or the other, then you're going to have to be able to design the foundation accordingly. And it's going to be a lot more for a foundation if you than if you had a flat lot. And so those are some of the primary characteristics that you want to look for when buying a lot to build a house on.
It seems like you have to go in knowing, establishing a budget is probably one of the top things before you go out looking for lots and builders, I would say too, because all of those things you're talking about for the lot just add so much money to the price of the build that sometimes it prices you out completely.
Where you realtors play an invaluable role, and that is to be able to meet with your client early on and say, what are we really trying to accomplish here? When you're dealing with people who want to build a new house or even buy a new house, you're dealing with several key factors, all of which you all deal with as a matter of course. Number one, what are the physical constraints here? What are the physical reasons why you have to or feel compelled to go out and buy a new home, whether it's an existing home or a build from scratch? It could be family size. You could have a situation where the family's been growing and gosh, they need more room for the kids. They may need a backyard for the kids to be able to play in. Or it may be at the other end of the spectrum where the people could be nearing retirement and they're saying, what do we need a great big home for? Let's downsize and have something that's single story. And
here in Florida, we're seeing a lot of those master planned communities. So they focus on each one of those demographic groups. So I just pulled up the stats. There's a new master development. I shouldn't say new, it kind of slowed down during the downturn, but now it's popping again. It's called Nocatee. There's over 5,000 homes in this development. So it's so interesting to compare to Tri-Cities when you're explaining this mid-century modern stylized neighborhood and we're, expecting this perfect buyer. And then in Nocatee, they're just cranking them out. So they have the splash park and they have the dog splash pad and they have golf and all these things. So they're just attracting the young families who want that, Pleasantville vibe versus in Charlotte, maybe it's just a one-off here or a short plat here with 3. So new construction means so many different things.
Sure.
Mhm.
There are national real estate development companies that will come to Charlotte or Tri-Cities or Jacksonville and buy maybe 500 acres and then build out a giant subdivision of maybe even 1,000 houses or more. And then generally what they'll do is they'll divide that into different segments and then sell, say, 100 lots at a time to a given builder. And what they a lot of times will try to do is in a given area, and it could be based on lot size, it could be based on lot cost. They try to apportion that to different types of builders so that they have, as you, in the case you mentioned, enough variety to be able to have a really broad representation to people who are interested in buying a home. Going back to what the original considerations were, the physical requirements was the first one that I mentioned. The second is emotional. A lot of times people are making a move because they're just tired of where they're living or they don't like their neighbor. But one of the things I've always pointed out, and my daughters have always given me a hard time about this, is that I've always noted that the female of our species is always looking for improving their lifestyle. Men, on the other hand, tend to be kind of complacent. And if you have a cot and a remote and a large screen TV, he's happy.
I don't know about that. Now that man caves are a thing, I know plenty of buyers who are moving just for the man cave. So I think times are changing.
No, a man cave may have dimensions of 10 feet by 14 feet, but he's kind of relegated to that space. All the rest of the 3,000 square feet is in the hands of somebody else.
Lexi's like, yes.
Yeah, the
And
kids.
all the ones with the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's always been my belief that if it weren't for women, we would have no housing industry. So thank goodness, and there's 3 of you and 1 of me, so you can outvote me anytime, I guess. Vote me off the screen.
Just turn the camera a little bit. Okay. Any other?
Yeah, my daughters do that to me all the time.
Any other considerations?
Well, then there's financial is the third component. I think that kind of at the same time as having people get pre-approved, you kind of need to have a meeting with them where you talk realities. I have over the years just encountered hundreds of cases where people come in and they have a desire to build the home of their dreams, and the home of their dreams, as they describe it, is about a $1.5 million house, and they say, I can't spend any more, about $350,000. Well, that's as you guys come into the picture, you've got to be able to counsel them and say, we've got to get this thing under control. I have encountered a number of realtors, unlike yourselves, who have come in with a client in tow, and they tell me what their dream house is all about. And, I have to ask the realtor to join me out in the outer area so I can say, you need to counsel these people. This ain't going to happen. So the financial consideration is a pretty important one. One good thing about the marketplace today is that there's been a lot of appreciation. So if they bought a house 10, 15 years ago, they could either own it entirely, or they could have so much equity in their house by this point in time that they can actually go out and afford to buy a house for much more than they expected. This, from your perspective, can help you with somebody who has buyer remorse before they've even bought the house, because they're looking at you and saying, what, you want me to go out and buy a house for $500,000? Where am I going to get $500,000? When I bought my last house, it only cost me $200,000. Well, the natural retort is, well, how much money do you have in your house now? How much has that house been bid up in the last few years? And invariably, they've got some really decent money to put into a new home. And the benefits of a new home are substantial, because if you look at, the insulation qualities, the basic utility costs are going to be far less to heat and cool your house. There's just so many benefits associated with new construction that you simply don't get with a house where you've got leaky windows, for example. Where they just didn't build to the kinds of standards that we have today that are commonplace.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, especially here in Charlotte. It's interesting. You don't see a whole lot of this in Tri-Cities, but here in Charlotte, it's like you're looking at some houses that were built 100 years ago, that still have the original plumbing, and you're like, what? And so you're right. I think that there are so many benefits, and you don't want to be that buyer who is, first year in their house, constantly having to replace everything, slowly but surely. So pivoting a little bit, why do builders choose preferred lenders? I think that that's a common question, especially among realtors, because we're constantly running into this in working with builders. They're wanting us to get our clients transferred over to their preferred lenders. And so why is that? Can you kind of walk us through that a little bit?
I won't mention names, but there are some national lenders that if somebody came to me and said, I want this company to represent me, the lender may be represented in all 50 states, but not insofar as I'm concerned. There are some national lenders that I won't touch with a 10-foot pole. Now, why is that? Well, it's in a lot of cases because they have some new construction constraints that a local lender wouldn't have. And there are a lot of lenders who simply don't understand new construction. The process is so much different. And so there are a lot of lenders who may be totally at home making loans on existing housing, but where they're totally out of their element in trying to support you in new construction. And so a builder, by and large, particularly if he's been in the business or she's been in the business for a number of years, they'll say, here's maybe a list of lenders, all of whom are excellent. And if you choose any one of them, I'd be delighted to work with them. If you go outside that, then you're going to need to get me, or I'm going to have to approve that because it could very well be one that we've just historically had a dickens of a time with.
Didn't you say also too, that as a builder, you're putting up to $500,000 on the line and the buyer has 5,000 or however much the down payment is, the non-refundable. So don't you think it's good that the builder has somebody to reaffirm, to make them feel confident that this person can indeed close on that loan?
Yeah. Again, it just has to do with their history. There are some that, as you get to know them, you realize, gee, this is a guy, this is a gal you can go to, and boy, you can, if you will, take what they tell you to the bank. There are a great number of these people who just talk through their hat, and they just simply don't know what they're talking about, or they make commitments that they can't keep. So there again, as a realtor, that's one of the things you need to do, is make sure that you get bona fide commitments from both the builder in terms of what he'll provide the house for, and from the lender.
Definitely. I think an interesting thing here that we're dealing with in Charlotte is that they were initially, all of the builders were using their preferred lenders and then offering a huge incentive to do so. So covering, say, all of the closing costs. And so buyers were switching over to the preferred lender. And now they've just opened that up. So you're not allowed to only offer that incentive for using one particular lender. It has to be opened up to all of the lenders. So if you're offering that incentive, it goes for any lender that you use. So it should be interesting to see kind of how that plays out here. What is it like in Jacksonville, McCall?
I was trying to think to compare. We had a couple buyers last week who are going through quite a time with their new construction, their new builds. So, oh gosh, without mentioning any names, like Uncle Les said, we had a buyer who was using the preferred lender. Their sale in North Carolina actually had a couple hiccups, and now they're going to have to extend a couple days. And the lender builder team is now going to be charging $25,000 to $30,000 for an extension of a couple days, because that's how much they believe the price has increased over the last 30 days. So for me personally, I feel like some of them hold the cards a little too close to their hearts. And I think it's nice to have kind of that third party lender that isn't attached at the hip with the builder. But that's just my last week's experience.
I know every week is different.
Who was it who instigated that change? Was it the lender or was it the builder? Or could you tell which was
our
which?
Our buyer was selling their home in North Carolina. They're currently in Jacksonville in a hotel, and their buyer was switching financing at the last second and making an extension on the sale of their home as well as the purchase. So then the builder and the lender are one and the same.
Oh,
yeah. So
Yeah.
when I hear preferred lenders, I think of like in-house lending. This was kind of a weird situation. But yeah, that was not a great look.
Sometimes a builder is almost incentivized to have the buyer walk away from the deal, even in the 11th hour.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because you come to me in January and say, I want a house built, and it's due for delivery in August. And at the point in time where we drop the lumber on the site, it's now March, April, and my cost for lumber has gone up by 25%. And lumber is the biggest single component in building a house. So by the time I'm getting ready to deliver that house to you in August, the price that I had quoted you back at the beginning of the year is now too low, and I'm building the house for no profit, or for at least impinged profit. So it's almost in my best interest for you to walk from that deal, and for me to reprice the house and sell it to someone else. Conversely, if you're a smart buyer and you negotiate a good deal with a builder before the price goes up, you take him to task. He has to deliver on that price.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Unless you try to change in the 11th hour, in which case you give him an out, like your people did.
Yeah. It's a hard market. It's a hard situation.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So to end things on a fun note, what are some crazy things that buyers have asked you to add to their home in a custom set?
Gosh, you name it. People come in with all kinds of interesting requests, some of which we try to accommodate, and others, you have to say, gee, I'm sorry, but you got the wrong guy. And hopefully they do that early enough in the game that you aren't halfway through construction of the house and they don't come to you and say, oh, by the way, I have something that we didn't talk about that really we absolutely have to have in this house. Oh, geez. One was a cupola. For whatever reason, they had this cupola from a previous house or from a barn or something. And they said, we want you to install that on our house. It's on the roof of the house. And so we said, well, all right, we'll accommodate them. So the drawback, whenever you are accommodating to a buyer, is that whatever you agree to do, you have to back. And I remember on one occasion, we had a buyer that said, we will supply the fans. They had a source for these fans for their house. And they said, all you have to do is install the fans, we'll buy them. And we, unfortunately, we're accommodating, and we said, okay, we'll do it. We had our electrician install their fans. Well, within 30 days, the fans started shorting out and didn't work any longer. There were 4 of them. They were pretty expensive fans. And so they came back to us and said, well, geez, the fans don't work. And we said, well, yeah, but we didn't supply the fans. And in the state of Washington anyway, and I'm sure it's probably much the same in the other states where you guys are, if you installed it, you're on the hook to fix it. So we went out and had to disinstall those fans, buy fans ourselves, and then reinstall them at our expense. And so that's the fan story that I always recite when a homeowner comes in and they say, geez, if I supplied it, why don't you just install it for me? Sorry, we better back it.
What else?
Yeah, that's
Suppliers, right, that installed what kind of a coffee system or an espresso?
Oh, yeah.
Like from Italy, an espresso setup, right?
Yeah, that was a one-off too. And then there was another family who wanted to install a Wolf stove. Well, a Wolf stove is a real high-end piece of appliance, and it requires a whole different set of instructions that we had to jump through hoops to try to accommodate. Fortunately, we were able to install it. It worked like nobody's business. One of the shortcomings in that particular case was that there was no natural gas to that house. So we also had to figure out, okay, how do we change that over to a propane application? But at any rate, those are the range of things that tend to happen. It's again, as with anything that's kind of unique or unusual, to the degree that you as the agent and your client approaches the builder early on with it, you're best off, as opposed to approaching him with it midway through construction.
Yeah, I think the earlier the better on those kind of things. I remember there was a house one time that I think it was a mid-century modern house, and you guys ended up building a huge garage that was big enough for their multiple cars and then also a big boat. And so it was like this huge add-on to the house, which happened to just be like the main part that everyone saw on the street of the house. So it's funny that just even from the like curb appeal standpoint, trying to figure out those things earlier is probably better.
Yeah, what we've always tried to do with the design of houses is minimize the exposure of the garages to the front of the house. And as the lots become smaller and narrower, that becomes more difficult. I have always liked situations where you could position the house in such a way that you couldn't even see the garages. But again, with the constricted lot sizes, that becomes less possible.
We're kind of finishing up here, but I do want to say I'm going to do a little sales pitch that McCall, Catherine, and I have 24-hour access to this guy. So if you are thinking of building, we're good agents to use because we have quite a resource here. We're really lucky to have you as that consultant in our businesses. So
yeah, if anyone would ever want to schedule a coffee or a low stress Zoom chat, I think that would be a great solution for anyone looking for answers.
Great, I'd be happy to help you any way I can.
I love that.
Thank you. Coffee.
We're a big Starbucks family, so
yeah. Exactly.
Dad has a story about that. He'll have to share it a different day, though. Didn't you tell like the owner of Starbucks that it was a bad idea?
Yeah.
At a Denny's?
Yeah. I told him this is a bad idea. Nobody's going to want to drive across town for a cup of coffee. Coffee, by its very nature, is a convenience item. And so if you offered it at the end aisle of a display in a grocery store, then chances are, okay, people would probably pick up a cup of coffee. But if you ask them to drive across town, it ain't going to happen. Boy, was I wrong. Thousands of Starbucks have cropped up around the world. The fact that even though you think you may be a marketing expert, you never know it all.
Yeah, and our family is one of the highest contributors to Starbucks stock, I would say, in the state of Washington.
We really support them.
Isn't that the truth? All right. Well, Dad, Les Savitch, it was so great to have you on our show. And I hope that we can bring you on for a follow-up that's maybe more targeted next go around. But as always, it's great to chat, and I'm glad that we were all able to get together. Any closing notes?
For me?
I know we'll have Uncle Les on again. I mean, I know for one, I have more questions, so I'm sure we're going to get comments and questions. So we'll definitely have you on again, Uncle Les.
Excellent. I'm more than happy to join you.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, guys.